Recording. Hi, everyone. It's Lin Bouthillier from linbouthillier.com. I'm a certified trauma recovery coach, and I'd like to welcome you to special episode number 72 of my ongoing series entitled Monogamous at 13. This is my series where I speak about trauma and abuse using my case study, my trauma and abuse history, for the purpose of helping other people to understand pieces that they may have had missing or small understandings that weren't quite there yet. I'm helping them to receive those through sharing my story, but from two perspectives, one as the trauma and abuse survivor and one as the trauma professional. I'm a certified trauma recovery coach, which means I'm an individual who is a mental health professional with what we call a trauma-informed education. So I do not hold a degree or licensure. I can't diagnose anyone. I can't counsel anyone. I cannot do therapy with and for anyone. Certified trauma recovery coaches have a different name because what they do does not fit in with all the other types of mental health care. It's a little bit different approach, and it is markedly different from what is known as the Western medical model of mental health care. We take a different approach. It is a trauma-informed approach. There are many trauma-informed mainstream Western medical model healthcare practitioners, such as psychiatrists, psychologists, psychotherapists, licensed marriage and family therapists, all kinds of counselors, licensed mental health counselors, licensed clinical social workers. All of them, I believe they are fantastic, and I'm so glad that we live in a world that includes all of these different mental health practitioners. But there's a new form of mental health care, and it is what I personally do. It is called Certified Trauma Recovery Coaching. And what it does is it simply looks at a person's trauma history with the understanding, with the innate knowing that having trauma, and I'll define trauma in a moment, but having trauma is not equated to mental illness. And some people have found that they've been in the mental health system for years and years, and they've been put on medication, but nothing's changing. They don't feel better. Their life is not, they just can't get to that spot of what I'm doing in my mental health care is not helping me move any closer towards true wellness. And sometimes the reason is because a person may have been diagnosed with a mental health condition, such as anxiety or depression, or even bipolar illness. And sometimes our trauma can be severe enough that it will produce symptoms that appear to be anxiety, depression, or bipolar, or a few other different types of things. But when we address the underlying issue of trauma, unhealed trauma, then we can begin to make some improvements in our overall mental health. And so if we, let me put it this way, I am certain there are many people like me who were in the mental health care system for years and years and not getting better. Some of us even felt steadily worse over time, even with the best mental health practitioners. It's not about the mental health practitioners in most cases. It is about what is being addressed in the office at each visit. And I kept on being asked, how's your depression? Is it getting worse? Is it getting better? Is it staying the same? Oh, it's staying the same. Then we'll keep your medication exactly as it is. 15 minutes and out you go. And I am not kidding you. This is the most heartbreaking thing for me to say to anyone about mental health care. What happened to me has got to be happening to hundreds of millions of other people over the long span of time. I don't mean just right now during my lifetime. I'm talking about all around the globe over a very long period of time, hundreds of millions of people. would have had the same experience that I had, which was showing up for your appointments routinely, faithfully, over and over again. But no one ever asked the question, do you want to talk about what happened to you? Do you want to tell me what happened to you? Let's talk about your childhood. What happened to you? Who hurt you? What painful things did you go through? Now, in this current era, something called the ACEs score is used, or an ACEs quiz is used to help tell whether or not somebody had what we call adverse childhood experience. And ACEs stands for Adverse Childhood Experiences Score. You have an ACEs score. And what that is for the clinician to be able to tell what level of trauma and adverse experiences you have had. That is massively helpful. Just one short little quiz that only takes a couple minutes to take. Doesn't cost anything. You can take it for free online all day long if you want to. And if you want to, you just put in a Google search for ACEs, free ACEs test or free ACEs quiz. And you'll get some really good answers that help point you in the direction of where you need to focus for your mental health care. But I don't know when that test was, when it was designed and, created and made available publicly or to clinicians. But I'm so glad that they did. It is extremely important that we ask ourselves and have someone ask us, what happened to you? When did it start? How many different things were going on all at once? And what direction was it? Was it poverty? Was it unlivable environmental conditions? Was it an addicted person in the household? Was it a person who was physically violent? Was it a person who was emotionally abusive or things like that? Did you have enough to eat? Was there food insufficiency? Was there poverty? All of these things are factors in how we have trauma within us. And then that's for our childhood. But then once we leave our childhood and we move through into adulthood, a whole lot can be going on if we had a high ACEs score and we're aware of it, or if we were aware of it. Doesn't make a whole lot of difference whether the next stuff that's going to happen will come. But it is known that people who have a severely high ACEs score from their childhood can also have in adulthood very significant trauma. And we can talk in another episode about why that is so. But this episode, I haven't told you yet, is about anger, and particularly the anger of a trauma survivor, and how that anger is viewed by other people and how it is viewed by our partners in relationships. So if you have not taken the time to become anchored and grounded, it would be really helpful to do so now. And if you need to shut off the video and come back to it in a few minutes or just later at a different time, if you're feeling at all tense or highly emotional, if you just had something big happen that's left you having some after effects inside, this is not the time to watch a video about trauma. It is time to take care of your needs. And I made a video about an excellent way or excellent ways that you can take care of your inner being's needs. And I recommend it at the beginning of all of my videos now, because this way I spend a little less time going over this in a video with you. It's entitled Special Episode Number 57, How to Prevent and Handle Triggers. It is part of my series called entitled Monogamous at 13. This is the story, like I mentioned at the beginning of this video. It's the story of my trauma, and it is also me actively taking a two-sided approach to my own trauma as the trauma survivor and as the certified trauma recovery coach who can see it. This being can see both sides of that and then put it to good use for the education of all trauma survivors and people who tune in because they want to show care and and offer resources to a trauma survivor that they love. So special episode number 57, how to prevent and handle triggers. And that is about 1 hour long. And it will teach you, if you don't know about, using grounding tools and self-care and things like that, for when you feel that you're in a 4F response, fight, flight, freeze, or fawn, you've been triggered into an autonomic nervous system trauma response, which we call fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. And then there is information about selecting a grounding tool, like I always have in my hand when I'm speaking with you. I'll show you again. It's my little pebble from long, long ago at a little beach in Martha's Vineyard, off the coast of Massachusetts, where they filmed part of Jaws. So that's where this stone is from, right from that beach. I wanted to make something that will help people to be able to find ways to self-soothe and to bring calmness, and how to recognize what goes on inside related to our trauma, that we can recognize and we can do something to alleviate it. It's not to cover it up or hide it because we're ashamed of it or anything like that. No, it's just us saying, I'm a human being. I recognize what my central nervous system is doing now. I recognize that I've got a little bit of adrenaline and cortisol running through my veins right now. It's hitting my brain, and it's making me not be able to focus as much as I would like to in this moment. How can I bring myself back into that state of calm where I normally am, or where I usually am? All right, so I'm going to get into the episode now. Again, this is Monogamous at 13, special episode number 72. And it is, the title is A Trauma Survivor's Anger. We'll just make it that, a trauma survivor's anger. I need to reference an article here, because I wanted to find information about how we view our own anger, how other people view our anger, and how our partner in particular views our anger. I found an article on Talkspace.com. Okay, it's www.talkspace.com. And the question that's asked, which is also the title of this article, is there such thing as healthy anger? And it's written by Claire Wiley. It's from 24th of September, 2020. And it was just before we got clobbered with the pandemic. This is just a couple, 2 months, 3 months, 3 months prior to having the COVID explode into our reality. And it was this article is clinically reviewed by Ashley Ertel, licensed clinical social worker, BCD. So underneath here, at the beginning of the article begins this way. Sorry, tripping over my words, but this is how the article begins. You know the feeling, a rising tightness in your chest, flushed skin, claustrophobia, maybe the sense that you want to lash out or even hit something. Anger. Whether it's a trauma from childhood, the chaos of the world, frustration over the dubious choices of a coworker, or fury at something hurtful your partner has said, anger is a deeply uncomfortable feeling to experience. Many of us are not taught how to deal with anger properly. In fact, anger is often demonized, treated as a bad emotion with no useful purpose. Let's pause for a second there. Many of us, I need my grounding tool while I'm speaking about this for sure. Many of us have been spoken to in our childhood while we were very, very, very little. We likely won't be able to remember it. Okay. I had the experience of having 2 children in my family, 2 siblings who were 5 and 6 years younger than me. That means I was 5 and 6 years old when they were born. Okay, when they got to be the age of 1 or 2 years old, I was very well aware of what was happening when they expressed anger. And I was seeing it play out in my household. And please, if you're not grounded, I'm not going to describe abuse severely to you, okay? But my mother was very overwhelmed with 6 children, and she had unprocessed grief from the loss of her second child. And she had a lot of unexpressed grief and anger. She didn't go through the grief process that would have been a healthy grief process for her. I know this because we have spoken about it. She had spoken to me about it multiple times and told me that, no, back then you just bury it. You just go home and get back into your life and you bury it. There is nobody to go talk to. There were no psychological services available to her at that time. But what it caused was she had a significant amount of anger within her because of certain things that had happened in her life, and she was abused by my father. There's no doubt in my mind whatsoever. She was an abused woman. So she had significant amounts of anger. And my father had significant amounts of anger from his very big trauma history. And also lost a child. It didn't happen to just her. It happened to both of them. But what I'm speaking about now is that I saw firsthand at what an early age a parent or parents, in my case it was both, would be completely letting their baby know, you don't express anger. You do not express anger. I saw one of my younger siblings one time in the high chair, which means they were definitely under 2 years old. And my memory of it, my best recollection is they would probably have been somewhere between 12 and 15 months of age. They were little and they were in a high chair. And if mom was feeding them something and they didn't want it, and they said no and hit the spoon and the food went flying, the baby food went flying. Or, my mom used to make homemade baby foods with her blender. That child would have been reprimanded immediately for expressing their anger. How dare you? How dare you? And that would be the end of food. Well, you don't get any more food because you just displeased me. You just expressed anger. You made a mess I have to clean up. You don't get any more food. A 12 to 15-month-old baby cannot process punishment. They literally cannot process it. But I was scared while I was watching this because my mother was expressing her anger to her baby and expecting the baby to understand it, expecting the baby to understand her logic. And as I got older, I began to recognize, oh my goodness, I had to have been treated that way. Every one of us had to have been treated that way, at least the ones who were born after my brother's death. But I strongly suspect it was for all of us. I saw my mother spank her 2 younger children in a way that is absolutely not okay. Not in any circumstance ever. It is not okay to spank children the way she did. And my best way to describe it is rage spanking. Started out as a physical punishment for something that they had done, but she would absolutely lose control of herself. And more than once, my father had to say to her, stop it, Eloise, stop it right now. And one time he had to physically pull her away. And it may have happened other times if I wasn't around, but I witnessed one time where he had to pull her away. And I think I was either 7 or 8 years old at the time. And she had a 2-year-old that she was spanking unmercifully because she lost control of her anger. Now, let's pause for a minute and speak about the anger that would cause a person to do something like that? What would have to be going on inside of a person to be able to do that? Was she naturally a cruel person? No. No, she was a traumatized person. She had significant childhood trauma, and she had significant adulthood trauma. She had, I'm certain, some degree of attachment trauma, developmental trauma, interpersonal trauma, environmental trauma, shock trauma. Lots of things happened, and there could be multiple instances of each of those. But when we grow into an angry adult, when we have residual anger that's unresolved anger from things that have happened before, or we could just have a personality type also in conjunction with that, which is prone to a reduced ability or a poor ability to process anger in a healthy way. Well, if we're not taught how to process anger in a healthy way, or if nobody in our life has ever had a healthy discussion with us about emotions, then things can go sideways pretty quickly. But anger can be completely out of control, and the person could have almost little to no understanding of it or awareness of it. And if somebody asked them, do you consider yourself to be an angry person? They would say, of course not. Of course not. Anger is a negative emotion, and I don't do that. Well, anger got labeled as a negative emotion. We have a society that has been programmed with positive emotions and negative emotions. That, to me, in my opinion, as a certified trauma recovery coach, is a big part of why we can be so traumatized when certain things happen and we feel certain emotions. We're already feeling shame and guilt for feeling anger because we've been programmed since the cradle that anger is wrong. I gave the example of my sibling sitting in the high chair who hollered no and hit the spoon because they didn't want any more food or any more of that food, and they got punished. A baby got punished. We got programmed in our childhood to not express anger, or you are going to have some pretty nasty consequences. From who? Your mother, your father, your primary caregiver, whoever is in charge of your care. So I'll go back into the article for a moment. Is this true, or is there such a thing as healthy anger? Because, okay, the last part was, in fact, anger is often demonized, treated as a bad emotion with no useful purpose. The technical term for that in psychology is pathologized anger, where someone considers your anger a mental illness or a disorder. Anger is an emotion. It is not a disorder. It is not a mental illness. It is an emotion. Anger in itself is not unhealthy, is the chapter subtitle, or excuse me, it's a paragraph title. Anger is, according to the late psychologist Charles Spielberger, PhD, who specialized in studying anger, an emotional state that varies in intensity from mild irritation to intense fury and rage. As the American Psychological Association, the APA, notes, anger can cause your heart rate and blood pressure to rise along with a spike in adrenaline. Let's remember there's also cortisol being released at the same time. If you are, especially any time that you're in a state of being angry to the point of losing control of yourself. We also have a stress hormone that is highly stressful to our body to process large amounts of anger. And absolutely the adrenaline would be pumping, but so would the cortisol. So cortisol is a stress hormone. And it comes from our adrenal glands. All right. Anger in itself is not negative. We are allowed to express anger because it is a natural emotion, says talks-based therapist Reshwana Chappell, PhD, LCSW, that's licensed clinical social worker. Rather, it's how we respond to feelings of anger that make it unhealthy or make it healthy or unhealthy. I'm going to read that sentence again because I tripped on it and it's important. Rather, it's how we respond to feelings of anger that make it healthy or unhealthy. It's the response that we're speaking about here. Chappell says anger will become uncontrollable and toxic if we keep it bottled inside. Okay, let's pause there for a minute. She says anger will become toxic if we keep it bottled inside. What does society expect us to do? What do our families expect us to do with our anger? Do they want us to express it in a healthy way, or do they prefer that we keep it bottled inside? If we come from a family of origin where the people who were in charge of you, your primary caregivers, if they had an aversion to anger and found it to be such an uncomfortable emotion that they forbid you to express it, you will have significant amounts of shame attached to your anger. You will be feeling as if you are a very bad person who should feel guilty and ashamed. If you confront anybody who has harmed you or wronged you with what we call healthy anger, they don't see it as healthy anger. They only see it as anger. It's either on or off, and it is all bad. It is all unhealthy. It is a negative emotion, and you should never, ever, ever express your anger at somebody else because you're going to make them feel bad, and you don't have the right to do that. Parents don't, at the time that I was being brought up, I discussed this with other kids in school, not in this exact way. I didn't have the language and terminology and understandings that I have now, but we talked about it. Next door neighbor kids, we talked about it. Their dad punished them for expressing any form of anger. Their mom, not so much, but their father most certainly did. And so when children have that pushback from one or both primary caregivers or from their only primary caregiver, their only caregiver, I should say, if the person who is responsible for your upbringing shames you, makes you feel guilty, yells at you, punishes you, physically reprimands you, or verbally and emotionally reprimands you for expressing your anger, you're going to believe that your anger is unwelcome. It's a negative emotion. It's not allowed here. And if you make a mistake and you let some of it be heard or seen, you are in a world, you're going to be in for a world of hurt from the person who's in charge of you when you're a child. And then what do we expect to happen in our relationships when we're older? The exact same thing. And for some of us, it does. Anger can also be a useful sign of other emotions you might be experiencing. Anger is an indication of fear, frustration, or helplessness, says Chappell. Most of the time, when we feel afraid or hopeless, we believe that we're being taken advantage of, it can turn into anger. Oh, absolutely, for sure, if we are being taken advantage of. Without a doubt. If you're being stolen from by someone, yes, you will feel anger. If you're being cheated by someone, you will feel anger. If you're being betrayed by someone, you'll feel anger. If you're being lied to, you will feel anger. If you are being punished unfairly, you will feel anger. If you're being talked down to like you're less than, you will feel anger. There are literally incalculable ways that we can be caused to feel anger. Something can happen. Some causation will bring us to the emotion of anger. Lots and lots of ways. So it says the 4 types of anger expression. There are 4 ways that we typically express anger. 3 out of the 4 types are unhealthy manifestations: aggressive, passive-aggressive, and suppressive, while only 1, assertive, is healthy. As Hammond details, examples of exaggeration are throwing things and hitting. Passive aggression means sulking or blaming others. And suppression might mean being resentful and denying your anger. I'm going to just push back a little bit on one phrase that's in here. Passive aggression means sulking or blaming others. I have been experiencing passive aggression from somebody else, and it had nothing to do with them blaming others. It doesn't always have to be blaming others. Passive aggression can simply mean that person wants to hurt you, and they will find ways to do it without leaving marks on your body. But you will understand that it's simply, many times the passive aggression is just them simply letting you know something about you, your behavior, or just you for existing has displeased me, and now I will punish you. But it doesn't necessarily mean you're being blamed for something that they refuse to take responsibility for. It can be that, but it isn't only that. So I wanted to clear that up. Being assertive, on the other hand, means confronting others kindly, conveying frustration without blaming others, and not insisting on being right. Anger gets a bad rap is the next subtitle. Anger has a bad reputation in part because it's often associated with violence. But according to the American Psychological Association, that's a mistake. In fact, anger seems to be followed by aggression only about 10% of the time, and lots of aggression occurs without any anger, said Howard Casanov, PhD, and co-author of Anger Management, the Complete Treatment Guidebook for Practice. It's a handbook for practitioners. People also fear anger simply because it's uncomfortable. Our society is told that everyone needs to be nice, and that being angry is reserved for bad people. Ain't that the truth? That is a very, very excellent statement about how the public and the world in general receives anger. Says Chappell, that isn't true. Anyone can get angry. All of us get angry sometimes. Anger is particularly demonized in women. There you go. It's demonized in women. You might have heard a woman being called shrill or hysterical for expressing her outrage. I'll pause for a moment and remind people that the word hysterical was a word back in the olden days, and still presently today, it still surfaces from time to time. Hysterical was a medical term for when women became angry. Hysteria was not even a thing that happened with men. Hyster, okay, Hyster, okay, is a reference to the uterus. That means it's female people expressing this anger. Hysteria, when we have a hysterectomy, that means they're removing the uterus. It's a surgical procedure. Hysteria is in a direct reference to, or the name of, a condition that was believed to be when a woman, because of her hormones or whatever's going on inside of her, causes her to lose control of herself and express anger and rage and upset, resentment, frustration, all of these things. But they used to market medications to women a couple hundred years ago, or even 100 years ago. They were making over-the-counter preparations, and doctors were prescribing medications to treat hysteria, meaning that your bad behavior was coming from your uterus and the hormones that were produced by your ovaries and in your brain. And so there was lots and lots and lots of talk for a long time about hysterical women, and the name has hung around. But think back to the last time you had heard of a man or an adolescent male being referred to as hysterical. It is a word that most definitely is meant to disparage women from expressing any emotion or anger. What I'm speaking about is intense emotion and anger, because it will be regarded as hysteria. That thing still exists in society for sure, right at this time. The after effects of that programming was what we call societal inlays or societal conditioning or societal programming. Okay, anger is particularly demonized in women, as I just read. You might have heard of a woman being called shrill or hysterical for expressing her outrage. Chappell says that's especially true for Black women. That is absolutely true. Black women are most definitely marginalized in this particular way. If we have any sort of emotion that is not quiet and sweet, then we come off as angry. On the other hand, traditional gender roles indicate that angry men are problem solvers and doers. So there's a great disparity between how the exact same emotion is responded to and accepted and understood in men as it is in women. And I don't know for certain how that translates with transgender women, but I think, if this is just my opinion, okay, I would think that they would be held to the same standards as women, being now experiencing your anger as a woman is now going to be extremely differently received, processed differently by people around you once you are now identifying as a transgender woman, where before that process of changing, becoming a transgender woman, you would have experienced a different response to your anger while you were living as a man. I absolutely believe that, but I am not transgender and I cannot say for sure. It is just my opinion. What I think would be the most logical thing that a transgender woman would be experiencing is the adjusting to people now experiencing her emotions differently than when she was male. I truly believe that. Expressing anger can be constructive. People might fear anger, but research has shown it can often lead to good things. James Averill, PhD, a University of Massachusetts Amherst psychologist, studied everyday anger in the 1980s and found that angry episodes helped strengthen relationships about half the time, writes Tori DeAngelis in the American Psychological Association. The APA also cites a 1997 study of the Journal of Social Behavior, study in the Journal of Social Behavior and Personality, which discovered that 55% of a comparative community sample of Russians and Americans said an angry episode produced a positive outcome. Almost a third of them noted the episode helped them to see their own faults. One of the researchers, Howard Kasanov, said, people who are targets of anger in these studies will say things like, I really understand the other person much better now. I guess I wasn't listening before. While assertive expression is always preferable to angry expression, anger may serve an important alerting function that leads to deeper understanding of the other person and the problem. The next section is called How to Cope with Feelings of Anger. So how do we deal with anger, with our own anger, in a constructive way? How do we move towards a place that is assertive rather than aggressive? Make it clear what your needs are and how to help, and how to have them met without hurting other people. Being assertive doesn't mean being pushy or demanding. It means being respectful of yourself and others. Avoid suppressing your anger by holding it in, because anger turned inward may cause hypertension, high blood pressure, or depression. Even, a longitudinal study by psychologist Dr. Ernest Harburg even found that people who hid the anger even found that people who hid the anger they felt in response to an unjust attack were more likely to get bronchitis and heart attacks. Yes, it affects our immune system and it does affect our heart. There's no doubt about that. When you're in the heat of the moment, take a second to soothe yourself. This is where we get into self-care. Take deep breaths and allow your heart rate to lower. Exercise can help to let off steam, as can journaling, talking to people, and dancing. And for me personally, singing. If I get really, really angry about something, a huge, wonderful way for me to process that anger out of my system is to sing songs that help me express my anger. One of them is Queen of Denmark, written by John Grant and performed by John Grant, but also you can find it on a Sinead O'Connor album. You can find either version, Sinead O'Connor's version of the song Queen of Denmark, either, I'm tripping over my words again. You can find it on YouTube and you can compare the two and see what you like better. I love them both equally, but Queen of Denmark is a really good song to express out our anger. When you're physically calmer, you'll be able to move into that assertive and respectful space without either suppressing feelings or becoming passive aggressive. Passive aggressive simply means we desperately want to express our anger, but we're going to only just let it out at people a little bit and play a mind game with them to help them to question, to get them to question, gee, what did I do wrong? Why am I being treated like this? Passive aggression would involve silent treatment. It would involve some pretty heavy duty sarcasm. It would involve giving really noticeably uncomfortable answers to questions or responses. Like if you're being passive aggressive with somebody after an incident happened that you didn't much care for. Somebody might ask you a question, I don't know, just any question, and the answer could be, well, what do you think? And just walk away. That's somebody expressing their passive aggression. You're not going to say anything horrifying to them, but you're going to hurt them. It's going to make them wonder, what do I do? This person is giving me some of that same stonewalling and passive aggression behavior that I have come to recognize. All right, so psychologist and specialist in anger management, Bernard Golden, PhD, identified 8 key skills in practicing healthy responses to anger. They include observing and experiencing anger without being overwhelmed by it, and we call this the observer self. In trauma recovery coaching, we recognize that we have an observer self who can just take a step back and watch the whole thing playing out. And it helps us to detach from being sucked in and hooked into a highly volatile and emotional situation. We can go into observer self mode and become curious and ask ourselves, why is this person doing this with me right now? Why is this person taking this horrendously harsh attitude with me right now? Am I responsible for what happened? No. Okay, then that means that I can just quietly step away and say, you know what, I'll talk to you another time. And that's not stonewalling somebody. Using the observer self and looking at that situation, saying, no, I'm not getting hooked in. When you're able to look at this with a level head, then I'll come back and I'll have a healthy discussion with you, but not like this. Viewing anger as a signal to direct our attention inward. That means I'm starting to really express and feel a lot of anger. What's going on inside of me? How can I look inward? How can I partner with myself in this moment and ask myself, what's going on with you? I'm here. I'm ready to listen. Partnering with the self does not mean that you are crazy or insane. It means that you understand that you can be your own best advocate at times. Developing self-compassion. That one is huge. Self-compassion is just absolutely essential to well-being. We need to have compassion for ourselves. Beating up on ourselves and taking over where somebody left off if they were beating up on us is not a healthy thing. It's not a great way to go. And when we understand that we can mitigate that with just a little bit of self-compassion, eventually, self-compassion is kind of magical because it grows. If we start with just a tiny piece of self-compassion, if that's all we can do, the more we do it, the bigger it will grow. We don't have to worry about it. It just will. And the last one is developing strategies to let go of anger. I do not like the idea of telling people to let go of anger. A great way to look at this, a healthy alternative to letting go of anger would be, and here it's listed as a good thing, a positive thing that we should be doing. I find that it is very difficult to do, and it is so much more compassionate towards the self and towards others, is to develop a strategy to say, my anger is healthy. I am healthy. I'm expressing and I'm feeling an emotion, and it is mine. I know what it causes me to feel in my body, which is our feelings. And then I can say, was this anger justified? Is this justifiable anger? Then I'm not going to feel guilty and shameful about it. And I'm not going to let it go. Letting it go is something that is just really a tricky concept. I would way rather process it than just let it go. Processing it will take seconds to minutes, and we can just say, all right, I'm looking at what happened. Was I at fault here? Maybe 50%. Okay, maybe I was 50% responsible for what just happened. Do I have compassion for myself because I'm human? Yes. Did I make a mistake? Yes. Do I have to let it go? No, I can just process it and say, that was something that happened. And if I could do it over again, I might do it a little bit different. So I just learned something, and now I have even more compassion for myself. So letting go of anger, it's not natural to human beings. Letting it go actually might really mean have it still festering in there, but I'm shutting up about it. That's what generally most of us, I would think, would assume that letting go of the anger means. Like, I'm still having this horrible feeling inside. It's just roiling in there. It's just really messing me up right now. I have to let it go. Okay, fine. I'm going to walk away, but I'm walking away still angry that I had to let it go. I would way rather process it, because it just feels better. Okay. All right. So on to the next part. Use anger, don't let it use you. If you're ever in a situation where someone is making you feel that your anger is wrong or bad, remember that it's perfectly healthy to experience anger. Use the feeling as a prompt to look inside, to look inwards and explore what you need. Developing the skills to cope with anger in a way that is assertive rather than suppressing it or lashing out is the key to not letting the emotion overcome and control you. Try to find something productive or positive to offset the anger. Chapel advises, for example, if you're angry about the mistreatment of others, find a way to help people. If used in the right way, anger can definitely be healthy and even beneficial to yourself and others. If you feel like you need help managing your anger in a healthy way, speaking with a licensed online therapist is an inexpensive, convenient way to get started. All right. So I'm going to go back to just one little thing at the end of this article, and it is, if you're ever in a situation where someone is making you feel that your anger is wrong or bad, remember that it is perfectly healthy to experience anger. All right. I went through months of couples counseling. And one of the things that my spouse kept on saying to the couples counselor is, I'm very, very concerned about her. I had to reach out to all of her family of origin. And the counselor said, wait a second, she's already established very clearly that she's full no contact with her family of origin. You were reaching out to people that she's full no contact with? Yes. Why? Well, because her anger is so unhealthy. Clearly, she needs help. She needed intervention from these people. Well, what did you want them to do? I wanted them to drive to her house, knock on her door, ring the doorbell, come in, sit and drink tea and play board games with her and have a talk with her about how unhealthy her emotions are and that she cannot feel anger like this anymore. She's got to stop feeling and expressing this outrageous, horrendous anger of her. She has a huge anger problem. And the question from the couples counselor was, what do you think's causing the anger? And he actually said she was abused in her childhood. That's why she's angry. She was abused in her childhood. Counselor said, who abused her? Well, her family of origin did. And he said, and you think those are the people who can help her now? You think that that was okay to do? You're sitting there saying the source of the anger is those people, correct? You just said that. And he said, well, yes, but, and the counselor said, what you're asking her to do is to allow herself and continue to allow herself to be trauma bonded. That's what that is. If you want the same person who injured your partner to be the people who help that partner recover from all of the emotions and after effects, the trauma after effects of being mistreated, you're essentially setting your spouse up to be trauma bonded more after leaving an abusive situation. I didn't hang around and argue with them and ask anybody to change their personality or any of that stuff and their behaviors. No, I quietly exited all of those relationships. And it was revealed to me and to him in couples counseling. He's sitting there saying, I wanted all of them. I contacted everybody except one and their spouses, the ones that have spouses. I contacted everybody. I even went to her former friend and to her mother, who was currently at that time in a mental health, in a care home, an assisted living care home with advancing Alzheimer's disease. And he went to that person to say, to my mother, to say, I'm so worried about your daughter. You should see her. Her anger is so off the charts. You wouldn't even recognize her anymore. And I need you to have a talk with her to tell her that she, A, needs to knock it off with the anger, and B, to knock it off with this separation thing. You need to tell your daughter to get back into the relationship with me and live with me again. This is somebody who not only couldn't process someone else's healthy anger. Why would I call it healthy anger? The response to abuse is anger. There's lots of other emotions involved too, but you can't abuse a person without some degree of anger developing. And when that person feels that anger and expresses that anger the way I did, it can eventually get to a level that's strong enough where it will say, now it's decision time. I am not going to be in this destructive, abusive, horrific, injurious relationship anymore. It's not safe for me. It's ruining my health. It is causing me to have physical, emotional, psychological, and relational, and even neurobiological after effects. All of these things are highly toxic that are causing these after effects. So they will, a person who has harmed you tremendously, when you make that decision to leave and no longer be involved in that relationship at all, they will try to find every single way that they can pathologize your anger, which means to make it look like a disease, an illness, a disorder, or a condition. Very, very commonly, they'll refer to it as your condition. And that is the case that happened with me. Well, you know, her condition, that condition that she has, that's really, really bad. We need to get behind her and help turn that around so she doesn't have that anymore. Does the person who wants to orchestrate your feelings want to change their behavior towards you that is so highly toxic and injurious? It doesn't even occur to them I must change my attitude, my behavior, my words, my abuse, my betrayal, my addiction, my pathological lying. I need to see someone professionally and ask for help with all those things. Nope. An abuser is not going to do that. They're just going to say something's wrong with your emotions. There's nothing wrong with my behavior. My behavior didn't cause all of this within you. That all started when you were a child, and this is really festering now in your 50s. They will try to gaslight and straight up lie about you to practitioners, to your family, to your friends, to your coworkers, to your supervisor at work, to your neighbors, to anybody who has much of anything to do with you. They will go around on the tour of marginalization. They'll go on the tour of destruction of what? Your reputation and your relationships. This is what is the extreme response to your anger can bring. And I did not say it's what their response to your extreme anger will bring. No, I said it's their extreme response to your emotion of anger. They want it shut down. They don't want you to feel the emotion of anger or rage or humiliation, or, well, they do want you to feel humiliated, but they don't want you to feel it enough that you'll do something about it. They want you to feel great amounts of frustration and powerlessness. They want you to feel unworthiness. And they want you to feel damaged and broken and like you're malfunctioning and you should be ashamed. Any person who shames you for being angry, you need to ask yourself, am I angry because of the way that they mistreat me? That's the connection. It's like a negative feedback loop that's going on. They're mistreating or abusing you, maligning you somehow, shaming, embarrassing, humiliating, trying to get you to feel guilty, trying to get you to feel like you're malfunctioning through whatever means of abuse they need to use. Then when we feel the response inside, which is anger or rage or humiliation or great amounts of frustration, a very, very strong need to defend ourselves. When we begin to express the anger in self-defense, that's when they'll just point a finger at you and say, look at you. Look, I don't even recognize you anymore. You are such an out of control person. Now, there's also information in the book. Why does he do that? This is what the book looks like. And it is, why does he do that? And the subtitle is Inside the Minds of Angry and Controlling Men. And it's by Lundy Bancroft, world-renowned expert on domestic violence and abusers. And so in here, it says, this is a subtitle to the chapter, The Abusive Mentality, the abuser's outlook on the woman's anger. The abusive man's problem with anger is almost the opposite of what is commonly believed. The reality is, and this is all in bold print, your abusive partner doesn't have a problem with his anger. He has a problem with your anger. That is it in a nutshell. They can be angry and raging and behaving just like a cyclone that's inside your house. But he doesn't see himself that way. The only thing that it registers in their brain is your anger. And it's a big, huge problem. One of the most basic human rights he takes away from you is the right to be angry with him. No matter how badly he treats you, he believes your voice shouldn't rise and your blood shouldn't boil. The privilege of rage is reserved for him alone. When your anger does jump out of you, as will happen to any abused woman, I should say person, okay, from time to time. He's likely to try to jam it back down your throat as quickly as he can. I gotta ram your anger right back down your throat. Then he uses your anger against you to prove what an irrational person you are. Just like when my husband went on the grand tour of what's the word for it? Character assassination. He went on a grand tour of character assassination. Why? To protect his own image and to throw me under a caravan of buses. That he uses your anger against you to prove what an irrational person you are. Abuse can make you feel straitjacketed. You may develop physical or emotional reactions to swallowing your anger, such as depression, nightmares, emotional numbing, or eating or sleeping problems, and also addiction, chemical addiction problems can come from this for certain, which your partner may use as an excuse to belittle you further or make you feel crazy. Why does your partner react so strongly to your anger? One reason may be that he considers himself above reproach, as I discussed above. The second is that on some level he senses, though not necessarily consciously, that there is power in your anger. There is power in your anger. It helps you to make a decision. It helps you to see that a condition is intolerable. Why would that threaten a person who abuses you? Because the worst thing in the world that could happen to them would be for you to leave. They do not want their triple grade A top shelf supply walking out the door or pushing them out the door. They do not want that. There is power in your anger, and they're afraid of the power that's in your anger. If you have space to feel and express your rage, you will be better able to hold on to your identity and to resist his suffocation of you. He tries to take your anger away in order to snuff out your capacity to resist his will. Finally, he perceives your anger as a challenge to his authority. Oh, yes. They absolutely consider themselves to be the authority in the relationship, to which he responds by overpowering you with anger that is greater than your own. In this way, he ensures that he retains the exclusive right to be the only one who shows anger. The next part is the abuser's own anger. Once you grasp the nature of entitlement, and all abusers are abusing you, Lundy Bancroft says for one reason, because they feel and believe that they are entitled to abuse you. And from the book When Love Goes Wrong by Ann Jones and Susan Schechter, their answer to why does this abuser abuse me is slightly different. It's because I want to. Well, this coach believes that those two answers, those two beliefs, I'm entitled to and I want to. When you take those two beliefs and you twist them together like a DNA strand and like a helix, it is an extremely powerful thing that an abuser is using against whoever is the abused. And there could be several many abused by the same person. So the abuser's unfair and excuse me, I'm sorry. Hold on for just a moment. Once you grasp the nature of entitlement, the following concept about the abusive man becomes clear. He isn't abusive because he is angry. He's angry because he's abusive. So important. I'll read it again. He isn't abusive because he's angry. He's angry because he's abusive. The abuser's unfair and unrealistic expectations ensure that his partner can never follow all of his rules or meet all of his demands. It's impossible to. The result is that he is frequently angry or enraged. This dynamic was illustrated on a recent talk show by a young man who was discussing his abuse of his present wife. He said that his definition of a good relationship was never arguing and saying that you love each other every day. He told the audience that his wife deserved his mistreatment because she wasn't living up to this unrealistic image. It wouldn't do any good to send this young man or any other abuser to an anger management program because his entitlements would just keep producing more anger. His attitudes are what need to change. All right. Next part. In question 4 is, why does he say that I am the one abusing him? I'm going to stop there, and I'm going to stick a pin in that, which is really just a bookmark. And the next video that I do is about why an abusive person would traumatize you severely with their abuse and then go around telling people that they are innocent and it's you that's doing the abuse to them. Why would anybody be doing that level of horrific projection to another person? That will be the subject of the next video that I make, because we're already past the 1 hour mark on this one. So I hope that you find value in my information. I hope this video and all of the other videos in my series will help you to understand and have clarity about the sort of things that go on in relationships and in the world and in our lives that are traumatic to us. They're traumatic to our systems. They're traumatic to our well-being. They are injurious to us. And we need to know what is going on so that we can understand how to recover from it. The best course of action is to become informed as much as you can on certain subjects, not obsessively so, but to the point where you really truly get it. And then your mind, your brain now has a different understanding of what has taken place. And now it can have some traction in recovery. When we understand, when we have clarity, we have power. And I want every single one of you to feel empowered on your own. Doesn't mean without help from outside people. That's fantastic. Outside help through mental health practitioners, supportive family, supportive friends, all kinds of media materials, everything that you can find on the internet and in a bookstore or online books. And I love recommending books to you. I cannot recommend this book enough. Why does he do that? Is a brilliant treatise on how we can survive abuse, how we can recover from abuse. But first, we must recognize abuse. It is really, really important. So if you like my channel, I would love it if you would like, subscribe, share, put comments and questions in the section below. It's always great to request video topics. I will do them as soon as I can, and I'll let you know that that video has been made and put up for you in the feed. And please hit the notification bell so you'll be reminded when I put up new material for you. If you're interested in becoming a certified trauma recovery coaching client, it is a wonderful resource for people who have been abused, people who've had significant relationship trauma, people who've had environmental trauma, people who've had shock trauma, people who have had environmental things or such things as a really rough start in childhood. All of these things, all of them can be discussed with a certified trauma recovery coach, and a customized plan made by you, supported by me, will help you to recover from your trauma. And it is client-led care. That's my favorite thing about it, is client-led care, meaning you tell me what you need and I will support you. I'll be an unwavering support in your recovery, offering you every piece of material and resource that I have, and help you to build on your own internal and external resources for your own recovery. I get super excited about that. I love trauma recovery, and I want what I have for myself I want you to have that as well. Because why? All self-care is not selfish. It's essential to our recovery. And because each and every one of you, just like me, is completely and infinitely worthy of their own trauma recovery. That means you too. So thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you all have a wonderful day. When we are thinking about what can we do about our anger, we can honor it. We can accept that it is healthy. We can accept that it is normal. We can accept that it is telling us something. We can ask ourselves, what is my anger telling me? And then we listen and we begin to gain more clarity. So I will see you in the next video. Thank you so much for coming to visit me and watch this video. And I hope that you received what you needed from it. Have the very best day, everyone. I'll see you next time. Bye.